We are excited to have a diverse group of presenters representing the Caribbean, Asia, and Africa to round out our discussions on today's critical look into the circular economy. Our moderator for this session will be His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Claudius Preville, and he will introduce our three panelists and moderate the panel discussion session. Over to you, Claudius.
Okay, good morning to everyone. Thank you, Brenda, for your introduction, and thank you all panelists and all attendants on the webinar. So, in terms of my introductory remarks, I just want to say a few things. Circular economy is a model of production and consumption of resources. You've heard this earlier on. It aims at maximizing the value and utilization of resources while minimizing waste, pollution, and environmental degradation. Shifting from a traditional economy to a circular economy not only maximizes the resource value, but also has the potential to create new jobs in sectors related to recycling, repair, and remanufacturing. As industries transition to circular practices, there is an increased demand for skilled labor in these areas, leading to job creation and economic growth. Also, consumers may benefit from cost savings as products are designed to be more durable and repairable. By extending the lifespan of products and by reducing the need for frequent replacements, consumers can save money in the long run. Also, by adopting circular principles and practices, businesses and societies can work towards more sustainable and resilient future. Our webinar today is entitled The Circular Economy, Our Legacy, Converting Waste to Wealth. For the panel discussion, as the theme suggests, we are seeking ways to first better understand the concept of circular economy, and second, to learn more about applications of the concept in different contexts, and finally, to draw lessons and perspectives that can be adopted or adapted for use in the Caribbean context, both in the field of management consulting and in the public policy space. To realize the task we have set ourselves, today we have three distinguished panelists who are practitioners in the field. They will present the concepts from their own context and practical experience, and we will follow up their presentations with a panel discussion fueled by some questions from the moderator, and we'll also be taking some questions from the audience. At this juncture, I would like to encourage participants to post any questions you may have into the webinar chat room, and our team will consider them when we come to the Q&A phase of this session. Our first panelist is Professor Bedmani Dahal. Dr. Bedmani Dahal is a distinguished professor of environmental science, the Department of Environmental Science and Engineering at Kathmandu University, Nepal, where he has been serving since 1997. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Biology from Tribhuvan University, Nepal, a Master's of Science in Environmental Sciences from Wageningen University in the Netherlands, and a PhD in Environment and Development Studies from the Norwegian University of Life Sciences in Norway. Currently, he is leading a collaborative project titled Establishing the Circular Economy-Based Livestock Sector through Collaborative Educational and Research Activities. He has partnered with Nord University, Norway, Kathmandu University, Nepal, and Agriculture Forestry University, Nepal to realize this project. The project is being funded by the Norwegian Agency for International Cooperation and Quality Enhancement in Higher Education under the Norwegian Partnership Program for Global Academic Cooperation with the support from the Norwegian Ministry of Education and Research and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Our second panelist is Ms. Monica Wambui. Monica Wambui is a telecommunication and renewable energy engineer by training. She is currently completing her master's in global environment and sustainability at the University of London. She is a certified circular economy practitioner from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a licensed project manager practitioner. She is an alumna of the Young African Leaders Initiative. For the past 10 years, Monica has worked at the intersection of climate change, renewable energy, and global environmental policy. In her previous work, she led the African continent's first solar e-waste challenge, which was a groundbreaking initiative that reshaped industry perspectives on e-waste and laid the foundation for circular economy practices that are still evident today. Monica creates programs that define, improve, and enhance the understanding of the circular economy and its implementation for governments and private sector players. Our third panelist is Mr. Curtis Dennie. Curtis is a results-driven executive, a logistics specialist, and an ISO 20700 trained management consultant with over 15 years of hands-on experience in ports and shipping operations. He served as Port Operations Manager at the Antigua and Barbuda Port Authority, and later as a logistics specialist at SEDIMA. He holds 3 advanced degrees, an MBA, MPhil in management, and MSc in logistics and supply chain management. He is passionate about driving efficiency, resilience, and innovation across maritime logistics ecosystems. Curtis is also a chartered member of Institute of Logistics and Transport Logistics and a prolific writer in scholarly journals on research in the maritime sector. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the biographies of the panelists that will be discussing this important subject today. I have to add that I have had the pleasure of working with Professor Bedmani Dahal in Nepal. We together worked on a book that's entitled Green and Circular Economy, a Reader for Nepal. And that book, of course, is published by the Kathmandu University. He has a chapter in this book. I also have had the pleasure of knowing Curtis in a previous life when I worked with the St. Lucia ANC Ports Authority. We have attended a few events together involving port management. So I think we have a very solid panel, and without any further ado, I want to invite the first panelist, Professor Bedmani Dahal, to provide us with the insights from the perspective of Nepal. Professor Bed.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Claudius. First of all, I would like to say Happy Consultant Day. And today is also World Environment Day. So happy World Environment Day. Good morning to all and good evening from Nepal because it's already around 9:30 in the evening. First of all, I would like to thank the CIMC team for organizing this virtual conference on the circular economy, focusing on our legacy, converting waste to wealth, and giving me the opportunity to present the case of Nepal. It has been stated that green and circular economy linkages different sectors of environment, economy, and society, as it has already been discussed by Professor Waine. Circular economy reduces waste generation, minimize resource depletion, and lower pollution. That's why we need to adopt circular practices such as recycling, reusing, and remanufacturing. Though there are many R's in circular economy, we need to add again more and more. And with this circular economy concept, I would like to present a case study from Nepal where I'm focusing more on waste, especially solid waste. When we are talking about solid waste is one of the major environmental problems of Nepal, though there are many other environmental problems. When you talk about solid waste, we need to go back to 1980s or 1981 to be exact, because at that time the German technical team initiated a project. We call it JTZ project, that initiated to bring the waste that is being produced by the people in a collection system or solid waste management system. As this launch the project, people started discarding the waste into the waste bins, which is provided by the project or which is managed by the municipality. The habit of disposing waste then started with the public bins and public places. Now the government is unable to manage all the solid waste that is produced by the people, either in the remote areas or in the city areas. But people have already started their habit to bring the waste from their house to the public places or public bins or nearby rivers. I think I forget to share the slide.
Professor
Yeah.
Ted, your slides are not being presented. Do you want to put them on? Please.
Yeah, I realize this now. Okay, let me share the slide first. Yeah, is it visible? Hello.
Yes, it's visible now. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Proceed. Mhm.
So they started disposing their, solid waste at different places. Sometimes along the roads or open space or at the bank of rivers or near forest areas. And this all has led to the environmental problems, posing a threat to the health and hygiene of the people as well as other animals, and it has caused land pollution, water pollution, and air pollution in the country. Though Nepal consists of many municipalities, some are big and we call metropolitans, and some in between, like sub-metropolitans, and others as rural and urban municipalities. While looking the waste generation of all these municipalities, it is about 4,900 tons per day. Actually, this is a huge amount of waste being produced, though per capita waste generation is just around 300 gram per day because of the number of the people in the country. And the main thing is that only 50% of the generated waste is collected in urban areas, and most of the waste is not collected in rural areas. So this is creating a problem, a real problem in the urban areas. And whatever is being collected, that is disposed without any treatment, even in the major or the capital city of Kathmandu. And that's why they are being dumped at different places, and it has created the problem like this. And the type of waste which is being produced from different sectors differs as well as at different local levels. For example, the metropolitan cities, they, develop the waste which consists of mostly organic waste, like 44%, and inorganic waste like 30%, whereas some metropolitan where organic waste is much more, like 70%, and inorganic waste at 26%. And if we look the municipalities level, organic waste is about 53% and inorganic is 35%. Why I am saying this is, depending upon the type of municipality or the place or the people condition, the waste generation is different. And these different sectors develop or generate different types of wastes. But if we look the overall composition of the solid waste, you will find that mostly organic waste is being produced from different sectors. Either it is from household or industries or so on. If we compile all this, then mostly or about 56% is from these organic components. About 13% plastic, 8% of paper, 16% of glass, 3% of textile, 3% of metals, and rest is others. Most of the materials which are discarded in the mixed form. You could see in the picture that all of this waste is being mixed, and it is very hard to use or recycle most of the usable and recyclable materials. However, in present context, there are many small and big enterprises that are motivating segregation process of this waste and valuing the resources. If anyone can sort the materials at household level or at disposal sites or at transfer stations or even at the landfill sites, one can make living out of it. Why I'm saying living? Because there are many metals which has a value, and that value is actually being considered by the vendors, and they have a price. There is a cost of it. And just to give an example of this, these materials, usually the glass bottles, papers, especially newspapers or books or cardboards and so on, some of the metals like aluminum, iron, even the cans, copper, they have a value. You could see there is a price of these materials, scrap materials, and there is a price for plastics materials and organic manure or the compost. Okay, so if we look these values, and there are many vendors which are providing this cost, and they buy from individual households, and they collect and they send it to the recycling industries or reusable industries. In case of the price may vary or it may be higher or lower, but depending on the vendors to vendors or from place to place, to rural areas or in urban areas. And in case of this general concept of circular economy, solid waste can be applied in different ways. And if we look the value, and if we just consider about the organic materials, plastics, paper, glass, which are being generated from the cities, especially this is the example of Kathmandu city, which is the capital of Nepal. If we consider organic waste, and if 50% of organic waste is decomposable and converted into compost, or 13% of plastic with a rate of 10 rupees or so on, we can have the value of more than 157 million rupees per day, which is about US dollar 303,000. If we just consider 25% of the waste which is being generated is actually being converted into the value-based materials. Okay, so instead of utilizing this value of from the solid waste, what we are doing is we are actually requiring more money to collect, transfer, and dispose this waste at the landfill site. That's why what I would like to clear from this presentation is that we need to shift from linear economy to circular economy, and if we can do this, we could save more than $303,000 per day, even from the waste of Nepal every day. But this cash is not actually being transformed into wealth because we are not collecting, we are not converting this into wealth. That's why we need to convert most of the materials into compost at local level or municipal level and generate biogas or renewable energy. Similarly, we could also convert that into briquettes or biofuel, and we could convert all these things into usable materials. And there are some ways, or there are technologies where we could even convert plastic waste into diesel fuels. Okay, so the main thing is the mindset and practice that we can, that we practice. So from the 3R principles, as has been discussed, reduce, reuse, recycle, what I propose is 3S principle, where S is separate collection. If we can do that in our household level, and if we can sort the usable or recyclable materials and sell them, we could make money out of it. So let's go for it, and we could make money out of it. So I request converting the waste into wealth to compensate the circular economy. With this, I stop my presentation. Thank you. And if you have any questions, here is my email address. You could write to me. And this is my Kathmandu University picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bed. Yes. Thank you so much for your presentation. That's very illuminating on what Nepal has been doing. We will take the questions after all panelists have made their submissions. Just a reminder, you can post your questions in the chat room for now. And when we have had all the presentations, we'll take questions thereafter in the Q&A. Our next presenter is Monica Wambui. Monica, can you please come in?
Thank you, Dr. Preville. Can you hear me well?
Very clearly. Please proceed.
Super. Let me share my slides. Let me know if you can see them.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Super. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. As Dr. Preville has indicated, my name is Monica Wambui, and for our discussion today, I will be looking at the circular economy and how it applies to the e-waste value chain. And before we get into it, a quick review of how my presentation will flow. I will begin by defining what e-waste is, what are the factors that affect e-waste, and then we will jump into the meat of the discussion where we will look at the pillars for integrating circular economy into the e-waste value chain. And then we will also look at 2 case studies, which will provide a macro and micro perspective for application, which will be based on the pillars. And without any further ado, I'll get right into it. So what is e-waste? E-waste refers to any electrical and electronic equipment that has been discarded by its owner as waste without the intent of reuse. And when you think about electrical and electronic equipment, they're being categorized into 6 broad categories by the United Nations University, and this includes temperature exchange equipment such as refrigerators, conditioners. You also have screens and monitors, so typical TVs and monitors, which would also be used in hospitals. We have lamps. We also have large equipment such as washing machines, printers, ovens, and then we have small equipment, which we'll find in nearly all spheres of our lives. So in our homes, in our offices, in schools. So think about toasters, calculators, cameras, even, for example, the e-cigarettes, which are regularly referred to as vapes. Those also count as electrical and electronic equipment. And then finally, we have small IT and communication equipment, which includes the mobile phones that we use, as well as the routers. And so as of 2022, when the most recent Global E-Waste Monitor report was released, 62 billion kgs of e-waste had been produced globally. And the largest proportion of that was taken by the small equipment. Another element for us to note from the second graphic that you can see there in the middle is the inclusion of photovoltaic panels. This is important because as at now, which has been spoken about by Professor Dennie, is how we're moving towards sustainable development goals, which includes renewable energy technologies, which include solar technologies, so that even these renewable technologies that we're thinking about and that are vital for sustainability also count as electrical equipment, and also at some point will become e-waste. Another element to focus on for e-waste is that not only does it contains both hazardous and valuable materials. So hazardous materials such as lead and mercury, that has implications for the environment as well as our health. And then valuable materials, this could be precious metals such as gold, and therefore making the case for why we need to have a discussion on waste to wealth and more so through circular economy. And so what are the factors affecting e-waste? When we look at this chart, it's really just showing two indicators of one of them is the electrical and electronic equipment that have been placed on the markets from in 2010, in 2022, and a projection into what that amount will look like in 2030. And the next indicator is the amount of e-waste that was concurrently produced for each year. And what I would like for us to note for each of these years is the increasing amount of electrical and electronic equipment that is placed on markets, and also the e-waste that is produced, right? And so why is this happening, and why is it important that we pay more attention to it? So first, we have rising levels of electrification and digitization. Remembering the question that Ms. Pope had asked Professor Dan about digitization, we're moving really quick towards digitization that has an electronic, all sort of conversations around digitization will end up having an electronic component. We have increasing incomes and rising standards of living. We have poor quality products that are being put onto the market. So it means that they will not serve us. They don't serve us for as long as they're supposed to, and they will fail in no time. But then we also have the concept of planned obsolescence, which is a literal business strategy where products are built to fail in a particular time, and which the goal is to ensure that customers have to go back and buy a new product that is more fashionable and that is fashionable. And then also we have rapid technological advancements across all sectors. And in this case, I would invite you to think about any sector or any framing that comes with tagged with the word smart. So smart agriculture, smart building, smart furniture, smart clothing, all these have an electronic component, and we're only going to continue to see more and more of these advancements, and that still has linkages to electrical and electronic components. And also we have increasing industrialization. So with this large, broad framing, let's talk about how does it look like then to apply circular economy for the waste to wealth conversion, and more so how does it apply to the e-waste value chain. However, as we're talking about this in the e-waste value chain, this also applies to other sectors. And so in thinking about the enablers, we categorize them broadly into 5. So you have policy capital, infrastructural capital, financial capital, innovation, and social capital. The interesting thing with these pillars is that they're not only applicable across different scales, for example, at a national level, but also at an organizational level. So depending on who it is that you are advising as a consultant, it could be a government, it could also be an organization. These pillars are applicable, and it is also applicable across different sectors, as I've said. So not just electrical and electronic equipment. Think about building, think about textiles. These pillars can find application there. And so thinking a bit more about that, policy capital looks like policies, progressive policies that support circularity and enhance ecosystem restoration. And this is applicable across different scales again. So we have at the international level where we have conventions such as the Basel Convention, the Bamako Convention, which focus on e-waste. But then we also have regional policies that can be adopted, for example, for the Caribbean member states. And then we have national policies. And this can look like standardization, the adoption of energy efficiency policies. It can look like harmonization, or bans and restrictions for specific products that maybe have hazardous substances. And then when you're thinking about infrastructural capital, we're thinking physical infrastructure, and I'll remind us of just what Dr. Bed has talked about, how despite the opportunity that exists in Nepal for waste to wealth conversion, the lack of collection, the lack of infrastructure that makes it possible to collect that solid waste then means that they are not realizing the benefits that are available. So in this case, we're think about any recycling facility for the e-waste chain, think about collection infrastructure. And then also we have what I'm calling data infrastructure. And this takes us back to technology and being able to quantify, collect data. And this is important because when you read a lot of reports and they're talking about Africa, for example, one of the challenges that they mention is a lack of data. And data is important because if you're going to build out any solution, you need to have information. And also not only for building out the solution, but also for monitoring that solution. And then we have financial capital, which is a linchpin for a lot of discussions for anything. It's really about putting money where our hands are, where putting money there, and that can look like green investments. So a bit of what Professor Dan was talking about, like if you're going to be making as an investor, how do you bring in that green lens? But then it can also look as very specific financial mechanisms that are geared towards enhancing circular economy. For example, if you're looking at e-waste, do you encourage recyclers? Do you create rebates for importers of products or for manufacturers of products? And then you have innovation and social capital, which broadly look at stimulating research and collaboration, creating awareness, building communities, as well as building skills. All right, so to contextualize this, we'll talk about Rwanda, and in this case the goal of this case study is to provide a macro systems perspective of application of the pillars. And so Rwanda is a country found in the East African community. It's a fairly small country with a population of about 13.95 million people. And the e-waste that was generated in 2022 amounted to about 10 million kgs, which is equivalent to 0.7 kgs per capita, so fairly small. However, despite their size, the fascinating and very impressive thing that is about Rwanda is how intentionally and how aggressively they have moved towards creating a circular economy ecosystem for different sectors, including e-waste. And so I will break this down looking at and attaching them to the pillars that we talked about in the previous slide. So for the policy capital for Rwanda, they have a very robust policy framework. So not only are they a signatory to international conventions, they also have national vision documents. So what you can see there to the side is like they have a national circular economy action plan and roadmap. They also have what they call the revised green growth, climate and resilience plan. And then you have then you bring it closer and you have, for example, what they have the national e-waste management policy, which is framed under the larger national sanitation policy. Then another element to think about in the policy capital is having clear definitions and categorizations. If you read enough text about e-waste, there's always a discussion about what counts as e-waste, and which I think fits a lot even as what counts as waste. And so having clear definitions so that the different stakeholders have clear understanding of what their role would be there. And also the other element when you're thinking about policy capital is having strong institutional frameworks for roles and responsibility. In Rwanda, for example, it's identifying the relevant agencies, which include the ministries of ICT, of infrastructure, of energy, as well as the standards bodies. In this way, you're able to, once you have this list of agencies, then you also know how they can participate in making this larger goal realizable. Then you have the assignation of budgets, and then also the inclusion of micro and macro indicators for monitoring, which is vital, as we have mentioned. And then looking at the remaining pillars, we have physical capital. So the image that you can see right at the bottom of the first image is a 10,000 ton per annum e-waste recycling facility, which was constructed through a public-private partnership between the government of Rwanda and a private investor known as EnviroServe. And in this recycling facility, not only do they recover valuable elements, but they also, before they get to that point, they also repair and refurbish equipment. So this is like getting the boots on the ground for setting up systems that support circular economy. And then they also have a very robust reverse logistics for e-waste collection, which is what you can see here with the e-waste collection points, where they have collection points in each of the 16 districts across the country. So, and it's this container that you can see here, this image in the middle, is that you can, no matter where you are in the country, you can come in and drop off your e-waste. And you can see it also includes other kinds of products. You can also drop off your paper. And then they also have a municipal waste facility, which through which they can transform bio-waste treatment to make fertilizer. Then in thinking about financial capital, a key highlight for Rwanda is this existing environment and climate fund called for NERWA, which really channels funding, so for public and private funding towards climate investment, green investments, and which was vital in the building of this environmental facility. They also they optimize, again, as we have noted, through this facility, public-private partnerships to raise funds, because funds are always, again, as I said, a linchpin. So how do you optimize the acquisition of these funds to enable whatever intervention that you're implementing? Then you also bringing it closer to the sort of the players in the field. So financial incentives for collectors. You have informal collectors who collect, for example, different kinds of e-waste. How do you incentivize them not to cherry pick, but to sort of deliver, for example, whatever they collect to the recycling facility? So they provide incentives. And then you can also have fiscal policies, such as tax waivers and special exemptions to enhance compliance. And then when you're thinking about social and innovation capital, they're in the process of creating curriculum for circular economy, as well as including courses for e-waste in the vocational institutes. Then they have accelerator and incubator programs. Then they also they carry out national e-waste collection campaigns in collaboration between the government and the recycling facility. And then and a key thing also here is the training of informal sector workers. This is important because when you're thinking about waste, we already have informal actors, and if you're thinking about formalization, they have to be brought into the fold one way or the other. And so how Rwanda has gone about it is the training of informal sector workers who participate in the e-waste conversation. All right, then until our second case study. This provides a microsystems perspective, and it's about packaging. Packaging is an innovative business model in South Africa, and it really incentivizes behavioral change. It's a good example of incentivizing behavioral change as well as shifting perception. So essentially what packaging is a trailer, this trailer that you can see here, that moves around different communities and on different days and sets up shop there and collects and invites communities to bring in their recyclable packaging material. But you as a community member, as you bring in your recyclable packaging, then you are also, you're paid depending on the weight of the recyclables that you have brought in. And so, and an aspect that is particularly also interesting about packaging is that it's not just implemented by individuals. It is anchored on the larger regulation that is known as extended producer responsibility, where they bring in private sector. And really the concept about the extended producer responsibility is acknowledging that anybody who brings in a product into the market, whether through importation or manufacturing, has responsibility for this product once it reaches its end of life. And so they work with private partners such as ShopRite to where for example, if the community members can go and use the vouchers that they receive from packaging. The other element that is interesting about packaging is that they have this curriculum where they work with schools for different grades to educate learners about the environment and the value of recycling and the creation of collection points through the schools. And then they also run community awareness programs. So with those two perspectives, I think in framing what the key takeaways here should be is that e-waste is a growing waste stream with a great potential for circular economy application, for resource recovery, for biodiversity protection and economic growth. And then at a product level is that circular economy emphasizes a life cycle approach. So taking it back to the beginning, how do we design? Are we designing our products to be repairable? Are we designing them to be recyclable? Because if you use for example, toxic materials, it becomes a bit difficult to recycle. So how are we making our products? And then finally, with reference to the pillars, a systematic application of the circular economy pillars enhance ecosystem shifts across different sectors. Thank you.
Thank you, Wambui, for this very interesting presentation. Our next speaker, I'll go straight into the next speaker, Curtis Dennie. Curtis, you have about 12 minutes. Can you excite our audience in 12 minutes? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudius. see. Right. So thank you for this opportunity to give a perspective relative to Trinidad and Tobago and its circular economy. The presentation would cover the policy framework, some government initiatives, examine the role of ports, and will end the presentation with some key takeaways. So the government of Trinidad and Tobago has adopted a policy framework that informs the position of how the circular economy, particularly the national recycling policy. The policy is designed to reduce waste generation and to promote recycling across all industries and households. And the main components speaks about the establishment of large-scale recycling operations, encouraging businesses to adopt sustainable packages and production methods, and enabling citizens to participate in managing their separation of their waste. And also critical is the partnership with private sector companies for innovative waste management solutions. One of the key success factors for effective waste management is the policy framework is fundamental. This has to be in place to inform how these initiatives would be executed, but also it provides a direction as to where the particular government is going, and that as you know, in many countries, government lead is very important. It's crucial to be leading these initiatives relative to the circular economy. So I'm just going to look at two other and this initiative is the iCare project, and it's the first initiative that was implemented. And this initiative speaks about how it's dealing with the focus on the collection of post-consumer beverages, containers, plastics, drink cartons, aluminum cans, and glass bottles. It has established, ICA has established over 790 collection sites in schools and public spaces across Trinidad and Tobago. It is very important that this subject of the recycle collection be focused because of namely the impact of plastics in terms of the environment. Plastics consist of microplastics and macroplastics, and we would see plastics on the beach. We will also see plastics impacting the oceans. And particularly, we are aware of the life of the fishes, all those various species are impacted by plastics in the economy, in the blue economy. And it is very important all cycles of waste management be considered, and also to the implications across this cycle. So what I normally would do, I would normally look at the solid waste and recycling as composing of three main cycles as it relates to logistics. That is to say, the first mile logistics, when you have the manufacturing and the move from the manufacturing to the consumer, right? So that is really where the initial product is made, and the product now comes to the port. And then from the port, it goes into the warehouse where that product now moves to the shelves. And following that, you have the disposal of the product. So you have the first mile logistics coming to the country, the second mile logistics where it moves from the port into supermarkets, and I would say the third component is the reverse logistics, how do you get back those components of the waste material to be used again? And that is referred to as reverse logistics. So logistics is really a critical part of the circular economy. So you have the municipal curbside recycling program, and this program here is in line with the government solid waste management system, and it is really designed to engage citizens into recycling and separating recyclables. It is also geared towards having the impact of reducing the number of recyclables, beverages, containers entering the landfill. And also it has also increased the awareness of the 3 R's and their benefits to the environment. So this program has really created significant awareness, and the government has adopted a policy whereby the broader community, the broader population is fully aware of the circular economy and the role that the citizen can play in really impacting, having a positive impact on in the circular economy. The ports are critical infrastructure in the global trade, and they are very much strategically located to enable the reverse logistics of moving waste material from and shipping it out of the country. And so that is where the ports would come in, and the ports enable the circular economy to be facilitated. For example, containers containing scrap metals, the containers are retrieved from the port. Containers are then loaded at the recycling, at the loading plant for the scrap metal producer. From there, it is transported via truck trailers, and it comes back to the port, and where it is now weighed to ensure that it is in alignment with international standards in the gross mass weight of each of the containers that enter in the port, and also to be loaded onto the vessel, because any overweight container has implications for the vessel stability. So it is important that all of these are done. Also, too, there is the inspection from customs. Customs would want to inspect containers, whether scrap metal or other material for the that form part of the circular economy that is exported, to ensure that there are standards, that they are licensing, to ensure that the policies of the government, they're fully implemented. So it's very important as we look at the circular economy, to understand fully that the circular economy begins at the ports from when they move from manufacturing, and it ends at the port for export, particularly for material that has to be placed into containers, and also to not just material that is placed in the containers. So you have containerized cargo, but you also may have break bulk cargo. That is to say, cargo that will enter loose into the hatch that is down inside the vessel. And these are normally loaded by cranes, whereby now these wastes now are transported elsewhere. Sometimes they use barges, they use different vessels and move this waste around. So in wrapping up quickly, so reverse logistics initiatives not only aim to reduce waste and promote recycling, but also foster a culture of sustainability across the nation. It also increases awareness of the need for innovation to enhance collaboration and investment. But critical, as I said at the very outset, the supporting policy framework enables a call to action for business and governments to embrace circular logistics, that we can move from waste onto wealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Curtis, for this very interesting presentation. I think we have now gotten 3 three very rich and illuminating presentations on practical applications of circular economy. Our task now is to dive deeper into what's behind all the details, right? Get deeper into the action. And I want to start with a round of questions to the panel. If I want to invite Professor Baird and the other two panelists to join us at this stage. The first question I want to take on Professor Baird. One of your revelations in your presentation is that the solid waste sector in Nepal generates about 4,900 tons of waste. And organic waste can produce about 188,000 cubic meters of biogas. Now, I know that Nepal has been doing a lot of work in that space, converting waste to energy. I'm aware of some companies that are very active in that work, as well as work at municipal levels. Can you tell us of the concrete initiatives that Nepal has taken to convert this waste to biogas? And the second thing is, can you also at least, speculate on how this can be adjusted to the Caribbean context? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. If we look about the biogas production in the country, then we have more than 400,000 household biogas plants, which has been established in different part of the country. And they are some in the individual level and some are in institutional level. More than 320 are in institutional level, and some are also at community biogas plants, which are producing biogas, and that biogas is being used for cooking purpose and heating purpose. And that amount or that number of biogas plants is producing about 4,400 million cubic meter of biogas per year. Just to give an example, that is like equivalent to 150 million normal LPG gas cylinder. So it's a huge amount of biogas that is being produced in the country through biogas plants. But one thing we should remember is that this is based on the animal waste or cattle dung. It is not from the solid waste which is being produced and which is being presented over here. Why the solid waste is not being used, though there are some initiatives by private companies who try to use solid waste, decomposable or organic waste as a biogas plant. They have initiated some in a larger scale, and they are thinking to fill the biogas cylinders or LPG cylinders with the methane which is being produced by this solid waste degradable waste conversion into biogas, but they are not successful. The reason behind it is due to the mixing culture of discarding the solid waste. The waste which is produced mainly from the household level, which consists of organic waste, but they mix it with plastics, papers, glass, metals, whatever they produce. So they mix it together. And it is very hard for the companies to separate it, because the biodegradable waste also consists of some portion of water, and that goes decomposition as soon as they are being discarded. So they find a problem. So some of the big industries, they are not operating as they should, and some are closed after a short period of time because of this problem. So the main thing we should consider, even in Caribbean countries, is that we should collect the waste in a separate form. If a non-degradable and degradable waste is being produced from household level or in the institutional level, that should be separated, and it will be easier and it will be helpful for those industries who are trying to convert that into either compost or biofuel, biogas.
Interesting. Okay, thank you so much. So separation is the big issue, and you recommend that we look at this in the Caribbean context as well.
Yeah.
Monica, I found your case studies very interesting, both before today's meeting and of course your actual presentation today. You know, you argued about, among other things, factors affecting the generation of e-waste, right? Rising levels of electrification and digitalization, and increasing incomes and rising standards of living. Now, Caribbean countries are all well within the definition of those criteria. As you know, there's a lot of economic progress taking place and transformation in almost all our economies where those factors play out very big. So drawing upon the Rwanda case study and the results of that study, how would you propose Caribbean countries approach e-waste, the e-waste strategy as it relates to the physical and financial capital sides in particular? How would you propose in a, 1.5 minutes, give us a sense of how you would tackle this task in the Caribbean context?
1.5 minutes. Okay. Let me go about this really quickly. It's raining in Nairobi, and I hope you can hear me. I'm going to keep on trying to increase my volume. But for an e-waste strategy for the Caribbean, I will take it back to the pillars. First, the thing that needs to happen is a sort of what you'd call a landscape assessment. You need to understand how you need to categorize and characterize e-waste. So first, how do the electrical and electronic products come into the country, right? So for the Caribbean, what I understand is that it's largely import-based. So what are these products that are brought into the country, and categorizing them as such, and also understanding what are the practices that are existing for waste management in general, not just e-waste, right? And so that begins to sort of frame the thinking about how people look at e-waste, and also understanding what are the policies that are in place. Are there any? Because you don't want to come and create something new and you would have had something that you could have enhanced. So the essential element right now is that you begin by understanding the context, getting as much information as possible about what is happening. And then after that, with that information, then you can move forward to create your strategy, and you create what are your anchoring principles. Why are you adopting a strategy? And it could include everything from reducing pollution to enhancing the environment to protecting your human health. It could also include elements about job creation, which, for example, as it was mentioned, 8.8 million jobs are possible for circular economy in the Latin American and Caribbean countries. And so this is important because then it begins to show you what your indicators will be, right? So you're able to say, if we do this, we will be able to measure it this way. So if we create 500 jobs and we are targeted to create 1,000 jobs, what is it that we're not doing well, right? And so then you have your principles. Then we come into specifically what you've asked about, like the financial and physical capital. The benefit or the opportunity that I see for the Caribbean is the opportunity for regionalization. And this applies both at a regulatory level as well as the physical capital. So rather than having each and every island setting up its own recycling facility, which is really expensive, how does it look like for each member state to, for example, if you already have one, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, how do you enhance it so that it can be used for about maybe 6 more countries, right? And creating what can be called green paths for this e-waste to move around. But then this needs to be anchored in regulation. So also regionalizing regulation, that you adopt regulations across each country that will be similar. And then in terms of financing, which is always difficult, it looks different for different setups. It's first commitments from each of the governments, setting aside a particular amount of money. But in this case, what would also be important is drawing in external partners. So you have different financing mechanisms that exist at a global level that can finance such infrastructure. So those would be the two sort of approaches for getting financing for implementation of an e-waste strategy for the country. Yes, so really quickly.
Okay, no, that is really interesting. You're following our regional integration initiatives closely. And in fact, I think I share that perspective. In my own mind, I've been thinking about used car recycling, separate from e-waste, but used car recycling processes for the Caribbean, because we import so many of those cars And now there's a transition to, electric vehicles and hybrids and so on. So there'll be a need now for a massive, destruction of those cars. We need to get a plan somewhere in the region that it can be done regionally, and I think this is the sort of direction I would advocate as well. Curtis, interesting. When I looked at the questions on your slides, I thought I would ask you about why so many policies in Trinidad and Tobago in respect of this whole sector. And someone in the chat room also came and they said, what do you think it will take for Trinidad and Tobago to finally implement national recycling system? The SWN and recycling being mentioned in numerous laws and policies since 1980s. What are the major challenges with multiple projects such as ICARE and have not materialized into long-term programs, the management system? I wrote a question down for you saying that I noted that there are several recycling programs in Trinidad and Tobago, the National Recycling Policy, ICARE project, municipal curbside recycling, and all these programs, right? But can you briefly tell us why first of all, why there was a need for 3 separate initiatives?
Okay.
And how would you assess their respective effectiveness?
Yeah.
And I want to add to this what came from the participants, because I think at the end of the day, this is the point. If we want to address recycling and if we're going to have a sustainable approach, can we introduce laws or policies that are simple enough and adaptable enough that could be applied quite rapidly? Or do we have to go through so many levels, so many iterations that people might get lost in the process of trying to achieve our goal? This is my point. So can you weigh in on that for us, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudius. Well, from where I sit, there are several initiatives. And I think what I think from the government perspective in terms of the policy, it demonstrates a strategic approach towards the diverse challenges faced in waste management. And also too, I see it as the policy as being the top part. And also too, it's you have the government-led initiatives, but also to me, the strategic partnerships with the private sector and the communities, because the extent to which the policy is going to be successful, it has to have the bottom-up approach. So while you have the overarching policy, you still need the persons on the ground and the collaboration with communities and the business sector and the private sector to work to handshake the policy and the policy initiatives. If there are any gaps between the policy and the I would say the practitioners of the art, the business persons and the community who live this experience, then that is going to create several gaps. But to me, what the policy does, while the policy gives a very clear, overarching, clear national vision, there are some logistical challenges in how you can truly assess. You can look at probably the volumes of collection, etc. But when you have waste management that is straight across your country, there are challenges with collection. There are challenges with your logistics and your challenges with your enforcement. And so that is why that collaborative approach is critical to your success, because it is really the end users and having the community and national awareness of the impact of these various wastes. How do you integrate them into bringing the policy from a theoretical construct into a lived experience? And I think that is the challenges that most countries are faced with. And that is why it's important to enhance the sensitization and to have those strong collaborative frameworks in place.
I see. So Trinidad is still grappling with this, and this is why I think the question popped in from one of our participants concerning that matter. Okay, let's do this. Let's do a second round. I want to start with Professor Bedmani. Professor, one of the questions I would have posed to you, I think someone is posing a question from the audience that is drawing upon some similar idea. Can you do some elaboration on the 3S principle that you presented? And also, you know, the second point is nearly 40% of the solid waste generated in Nepal by household is by households, right? From that graph you showed, that chart you showed. Can you tell us what concrete initiatives are in place, at least in Kathmandu, to harness the waste and redirect it to suitable processes for treatment and conversion to wealth? Because I know that there are in some parts of Kathmandu, there is a lot of, they have begun the separation processes. I know some companies are very active in that area. Can you share with us some of the initiatives that have been undertaken so far, especially from a household point of view? Your mic is muted. Can you unmute? Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. First of all, let me go a little bit on 3S principle, which I am proposing. Actually, we have started discussing about 3R principle, this reduce, reuse, and recycle. And we are practicing this in most of the countries, especially for solid waste management. But in case of Nepal and the presentation I have presented, what we have seen is that if the waste is not segregated or separately kept, then it is very hard for utilizing the most of the valuable things within this waste. And even this organic waste or decomposable waste that could overcome even the metals, glass, or plastics not in the usable form. So most important thing, if we would like to make money out of it, is to start with a separate collection or separating from the household level itself. And whatever is being separated, let's say if we separate into two types, one is degradable, one is non-degradable. And non-degradable consists of all these plastics, papers, metals, bottles, and all these things. And they have a value in the market. I don't know in Caribbean, but in Nepal, you can sell these products, or even the vendors, in cycles, they come to your home and they ask for this kind of materials and they give you money, they pay for you. So if you do separation, then you can make money out of it. You can sell it. So 3S, what I mean is separate collection and sort whatever is having a value or market value and sell it. So that's why we need to go or jump from R to S. We are going forward from R to S in an alphabetical order also. That's what I would like to highlight on. About the Kathmandu solid waste and how it is being managed nowadays is that the waste, they are, as you have mentioned, Claudius has mentioned, that there are companies. Now there are many institutions, they are sorting and segregating waste, and there are also non-formal sectors who are involved in sorting of these materials either at the household level or at the this transfer station or in the landfill sites. So they are gathering this kind of materials and they are selling again to the vendors, because these vendors are the one who collect all these materials, and once they have a certain amount of these materials, they export or they transport it to the recycling centers and they make money out of it. So there are these companies who are doing this, and there are about 100 such scrap vendors who are operating, and new vendors are also establishing companies. Some are specialized in plastic and metals, and some are even e-waste. They are e-waste vendors also, and they pay for money. And beside that, there are waste pickers. they also pick the waste, but they pick the things which has a value, which they can sell to the vendors. So in this way, it is going on. Beside this, municipality is also putting a tariff on each household, like 300 rupees per household. 300 rupees is about $3 in US dollar, around $3, not exactly. So we have to pay for the waste that we have generated, and this money is used for transporting the waste and managing the waste. Okay, so my concept is not to charge the house for generating the waste and just mixing the waste and discarding the waste to municipalities collection system. Instead, sort it out and sell it out. You can make money out of it instead of paying the municipality every month. That's my concept. So, though nowadays these scrappers, new institutions, and new young people, they are establishing this kind of institutions, and they are helping in a certain level, but it is not enough at present.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And in fact, some of the points you raised here on the issues of waste picking and so on, again, that came in the charter in relation to Trinidad and Tobago. I think I saw the same in Nepal. And in that book we did, there is also a chapter there on informal workers in the sector.
Yeah.
So I could probably share that with the audience at some other point. Coming back to Monica, what I found most interesting was packaging, right? When you in your presentation, for me personally, because you talk about how to incentivize behavior change, and getting people to change behavior is a serious thing, right? Serious business. You cannot get that done overnight, and you have to get their cooperation to make that happen. So one of the things I want to find out from you is, what are the major issues that have to be considered when setting up an equivalent system like packaging? What initiatives will explored by, I think, the South Africans to get people to embrace that new behavior change, and how effective do you think it has been in the case of South Africa? Tell us some more.
Yeah, so I think so in answering our questions, I'm going to continually go back to the pillars, right? And so part of the packaging has been particularly successful because they're expanding across the country. And one of the things that has made it successful is that it is anchored in regulation. So South Africa has what is called the extended producer responsibility. It's a regulation that requires, I mentioned this in the presentation, it requires that anybody who introduces any kind of product onto the market, whether through manufacturing or importation, they have responsibility for it at the end of life. And so the constituents of having an extended producer responsibility regulation is you have what is called a producer responsibility organization, which brings together, it could be, for example, if you have Coca-Cola, Unilever, products that, for example, is for single-use plastic. So they all come under what this PRO, the Producer Responsibility Organization, and they create infrastructure. So the collection, they set up infrastructure for collection, and how does it get to the recycler? They could facilitate the installation of a recycling facility and that sort of thing. So packaging in this case falls under PRO that is tasked with plastic waste management. And so through this PRO, the participating or the member organizations of the PRO are tasked, they have to facilitate this financially. So they provide funding that makes the operationalization of the concept possible. So that from the purchase of these trailers, which will go and be set up in different communities, to the transportation, to the staff costs, that comes under the PRO. And at the same time, not only does those costs, does the financing cover that, it also covers the incentives that are provided to the consumers when they bring in the recyclable packaging. So first, the foundational element is that you have the regulation which makes it possible. But then now, when you look at it now from the other part when you're thinking about like the social capital, where you bring in people and you're buying them in, and they see the reason to bring in the single-use plastic, in this case for packaging. It's the money, right? And this, if you, for example, if you think about it for e-waste, for example, if you're to set up a packaging for cell phones, for example, that would be different, because we have, when you think about like electrical equipment, we have some kind of emotional attachment. If I was to ask anybody in the crowd what you do with your phone when once you've bought a new one, most likely you have a drawer where you have like 10 phones, because you don't know what to do with it, but you're also feeling attached to it, right? So
That's right.
yeah. So it's then that also shifts, because how do you encourage me to let go of this phone? You need to incentivize me, but also you need to know if I would prefer to repair it. So packaging, like for example, if you're to do the cell phone, if you're to think about e-waste, can you prove to me that it's not repairable, and therefore it's just easier for me to give it up to you, right? As packaging. So it's the consumer behavior in this case is pegged on the financial element that I can actually make money out of this, so I can separate my waste. For example, if I'm making my eggs and bananas, I'll put that aside, and then for my packaging, for my milk, for my everything, I will set it aside, because I know I can go and get money. So it's really pegged on the financial, the money. Those are the things that have made this thing
the commercial side.
Yeah.
You know, one challenge I have seen myself with the whole issue of recycling is for example, you take straws, paper straws versus plastic straws. And the reality with that, for instance, is that paper straws are just hopeless. You take a paper straw, you ever try going to a KFC, you buy a Coca-Cola, put a paper straw in there, you start drinking. 1/3 of the way down, the paper straw is now decomposed and you cannot sip the Coke. So it's just impractical. Huh? So, and that's how you have people like Trump said, okay, we ban paper straws, we now go back to plastic straws. So in the quest for increasing circularity and reuse, we have to also find products that are nevertheless resilient, that consumers are going to find acceptable to themselves, because otherwise, you know, we'll have an element of resistance. And that is what's going to impact the behavioral change we're talking about in the first place. Time is running against us, but I'll do one more round if Curtis, and take 1 or 2 questions from the Q&A. We have a couple in the Q&A. Curtis, on reverse logistics, right? I am particularly interested in, as you've said in your presentation, the ports have a very important role in this area, right? But can you tell us more about the re-export of refurbished items? Because I think the Caribbean is becoming a center for massive re-exportation. I talked about cars earlier, but of course that is the bigger thing. We have to first do the reverse engineering and destruction of those cars and do something else with them. But the e-waste and others, right? I can see that becoming a big issue down the road. And can you tell us more about the re-export of the refurbished items and the initiative that Trinidad and Tobago has been taken to increase re-exports, and how that can be replicated in the rest of the CARICOM?
Yes, well, I would say at the very outset, I think that the action, the policy and the actions of Trinidad and Tobago they're very much commendable. That's the first thing that I want to say, is that the actions have been focused on how to create an enabling environment to bring knowledge to an area that I would say has recently emerged in the Caribbean economy, but also to listening and realizing that there's $4.6 trillion of value there for the Caribbean. So Trinidad and Tobago have been promoting the refurbishment of items, but I think more than that, I think what is needed is really setting up that regional logistics hub. I think is a critical success factor, because while we have small islands up the train, they may not necessarily have the type of the volume that you would need to really make it as financially viable. by the regional consolidation, and that's where Trinidad comes in as a regional strategic hub, because we have the logistics in place, we have the factors of endowment, we also have the land space, we have the development of our third-party logistics systems. That is to say, we have a very well-developed infrastructure. And so I believe at this point that Trinidad and Tobago is strategically placed to lead the region in export development through consolidation of re-exporting refurbished items. And I think to me that is an opportunity that that can be explored right now. If we're speaking about transferring wealth, we are speaking about when you have export development. One, it leads to poverty reduction. It enables increase in your GDP. It facilitates employment. It's really a cross-cutting issue in that it reaches across various various sectors. So to me, and of course it enables foreign exchange, right? Which is critical right now. It enables the forex is a challenge, and I think that export development initiatives will aid, but also it promotes not just export development, but it also promotes export development and diversification. So the circular economy right now stands in the region as an opportunity for economic diversification, rather than just having the first mile logistics and the last mile logistics. How can the region capitalize on the reverse logistics and come to the table to participate in that $4.6 trillion business? That is a $1 million question that we have in the room.
This is interesting because we already have in place, luckily, we already have in place a CARICOM treaty that allows free movement of goods across the region and facilitates intra-regional trade. And I think if we look at setting up, having Trinidad and Tobago as a hub for processing this waste and doing the re-exportation, I think that could become a big industry unto its own self. So this is something that we already have the Treaty of Chagaramas in place, the revised treaty. We already have a lot of enabling legislation in place in all the countries, and we can move very quickly with this. Okay, thank you so much. There are a couple of questions in the chat. What I will do is, in the interest of time, I will just take them and I will invite the panelists, whoever in the panel wants to weigh in on the question, we can do that. Someone wrote about PPPs, the role of PPPs in all of this. And I think one of you have touched on that already. That would help significantly, of course. It cannot be a job for only the private sector. It has to be something that government has to play a key role in, given the size of the industries we are talking about here. While recycling is important, it is seen as the longest loop within the circular economy. Is there a consideration for shorter loop initiatives? For example, within TNT manufacturing industry, is there an opportunity for the materials to be reused within the island's manufacturing sector, or is this already being done? That's a question. I think maybe Curtis, you want to take that one?
Yes, I think that it is being done, but I think that more can be done. I think that the opportunity right now, okay, I'll say this. I will say that these opportunities have not yet been optimized. And that, to me, is where we need to look to see where are the gaps in terms of our whole the policy framework, the logistics, and I like the idea of the PPP because while it to me again, this outreach to the business community, outreach to the NGOs and the broader community, to me, I think that this would continue to each partner continue to shake the other partner's hand will go a long way in bringing this to the table. The other issue too is that what is the role of the chambers? I think that the Chamber of Commerce they have a critical role to play as bridging the gap between government and private sector and
Yes.
identifying what the specific private sector needs are, and to see how we can now enhance the manufacturing capacities and really fully exploiting the opportunities that exist to me. So I think that it is a work in progress, but I think that we on the right road right now. We are moving in the right direction, and maybe Claudius, maybe this is an initiative that the CARICOM private sector organization can look at in the region to see how CARICOM, from where they sit, can help to move the needle relative to creating and facilitating other policy initiatives.
Yes.
That enhance the private sector in the region. So maybe there is a role for CARICOM in this conversation.
And in fact, there is a role for both CARICOM and OECS. I note Alison, is it Alison or Agnes Francis is just post a note in the chat room about the question is whether OECS is already looking at a system for the islands, and that is true. In fact, that has been on the agenda for a while. What needs to happen is for people to start doing things, not just talking about them. We have to start getting things done. So the OECS has been putting a system in place. I know there's an issue of regional shipping as well. That's been a challenge for us for the last 50 years, maybe. But we will hopefully start making some progress in these areas. And I think you've given us a lot to mull, a lot to think about. We have gone way past the time that was allocated for this panel, but I think in the interest of our goal, we wanted to ensure we dug as deep into the concepts and experiences as possible. Closing points. Can I ask you in 10 seconds? I'll start with the ladies first. Monica, in 10 seconds, your key takeaways to your audience.
My key takeaways is that if you want to have optimal impact, you need to have a systematic approach. So apply the pillars. Doesn't matter whether you're looking at it from a national standpoint or as an organization. All the pillars are applicable. And if you want impact, maybe use them. Yeah.
Thank you, Monica. Professor Bed, 10 seconds.
Yeah, for solid waste management and to convert waste into wealth, actually we need policies from government sector as well as partnerships from the private sectors and awareness to the community level. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Curtis, 7 seconds for you.
Yeah, I think that collaborate to me across there's so many interest groups and stakeholders. I think that I come back to the collaborative approach that is required. That we can have a common objective in moving forward in this way. So I'd say collaboration would be fundamental in moving forward.
Absolutely, I concur with this, and I think all the presentations have highlighted the importance of regional integration as well in this process. So I want to thank the panelists. I will not attempt a summary of our discussion. We have Zoom AI as well. We'll look at that in the coming days. Thank you so much for your very informative and illustrious work, and looking forward to future collaborations. Thank you, and I want to hand back over to Brenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. I was scribbling notes madly. I know we have AI, but sometimes I just need to make it down because I remember it better. We have come to the end of what, from my perspective, has been certainly educational, informative, and enlightening webinar. And with Claudius and the panelists summarizing the key takeaways in 10 seconds that they would like all of us to leave with. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the moderator and the panelists again for being so generous with your time and perspectives. And now at this point, I'd like to ask Nsombi Jaja, Dr. Nsombi Jaja, our past president and the chair of this committee, to give a brief wrap up and vote of thanks for today's event. So Nsombi, it's at you now.
Thank you so very much, Brenda. Oh my goodness, when Brenda said, wow, 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 those were my exact feelings at the time. as I listened to Professor Dunn this morning, and starting with Nick's greetings, that was so rich. And then I listened to Professor Dunn, and then now the panelists. I remember something my uncle, God rest his precious soul, he used to say, "Kya better," meaning we couldn't have asked for a better conference. My cup is full and running over with knowledge and just inspiration, because when they shared the various case studies, that's Professor Dunn and the panelists, I started my brain just started working, because I do strategy with my clients, both in the public sector and the private sector. And I'm saying, wow, every single one of my clients must have some objective on the circular economy embedded in their strategy. So I want to start first by saying one of the areas that I have been thinking about in terms of how we can, in fact, convert waste to wealth and see the returns almost immediately is in terms of our waste of emotional energy and waste of spiritual energy. As we go through each day focusing on the negatives and burning up a lot of our emotions on low vibration thoughts and the emotions that take us to a place that is not good, no bueno, because they say when you are operating in the low vibration side of the emotional guidance scale, the worse it gets, the worse it gets. And when our energy is distorted, when our energy is bent out of shape, we can't think positively, we can't solve problems effectively, and our days are nowhere as productive as they ought to be. So my charge as chair of this circular economy conference is to say to my brothers and my sisters, keep your energies positive, because anytime they go to a negative space, you're wasting that energy. And by keeping it positive, you can almost immediately convert your waste to wealth. That's what I am going to strive to do as I go through this process. So I first of all want to thank my friend and my minister, Reverend Esther Carlisle. Always so crisp, so beautiful, so inspiring, so focused, for the invocation he brought this morning. And followed by Nick Warren. I really loved Nick's very short greetings. And one of the things that I was so impressed by is he said, ICD today, ICD date today, 2025, about the circular economy is beyond the celebration. He said it is a declaration of our mission as consultants, and he has put it so profoundly. So I'd like to thank Nick. I'd like to thank my sister, Norma Shorey, because when I thought about converting energy, our own personal energy, waste to wealth, Norma epitomizes this. Norma is the president of this organization, and she gets a lot of things thrown at her. You know how it is. They said, heavy is the head that wears the crown, or something like that. And she gets a lot of stuff thrown at her. But Norma, as my father used to say, let it go like water off a duck's back. So yes, you know, she'll be upset because you see her body language, but the next time Norma come around, you'd never think that something had happened in that space. So she teaches us, she lives it, she shows us how we can convert our waste of emotional energy to wealth in terms of healthy relationships and positive interaction. So Norma, thank you for your opening remarks this morning. I'd like to thank my friend and mentor, Alison Francis, and the CDB for her presentation this morning and her continued pledge for supporting CIMC. Mr. McLeod Emmanuel, looks like two surnames in one, McLeod, you're a rich man, for sharing with us this morning on your program in St. Lucia. Ambassador Preville, you knocked it out of the park, as they would say, with your team. Monica, Professor Bed, and Curtis Dennie, our own Curtis Dennie. I couldn't have asked for a better panel discussion with really rich content. And I think as consultants, what we need more than ever is to shape the policy and the legislative framework that will enable the sustainability of circularity throughout our countries. And you have presented us, you have really just anchored this so well, Ambassador, with your team. But this could not have happened without my amazing team. And so gratitude is one of the most powerful gifts that we can give ourselves and give to others. And when I look at how this conference has gone and the amazing team that has curated and planned and executed so efficiently and so effectively this conference, giving tirelessly and selflessly their contribution. I want to thank Brenda. Brenda held it together. Brenda was the anchor, you know, and she held it together so effectively. And Brenda, we see the immense preparation that you put into this particular role you played today. And for that, we are eternally grateful. Of course, Norma, our president, has been there with us day after day after day. We had a whole lot of meetings, you know, and let me tell you, everybody just put hands and heart together. So what this conference has shown us is that when we put our hands, our hearts, our minds, and our spirits together, we can achieve major things like we did today. Charmaine Graves-Sandy, you are second to none. Your combination of skills and talents as a consultant, as an ideation person, as a technology expert, as someone with eyes for graphic designing, putting together all the slides and making this thing look like we never had any glitches that ran so smoothly and seamlessly. Charmaine, you are, as I said, second to none. Charmaine don't sleep, you know. I mean, there are nights when she has not gotten any sleep. And I know for a fact that last night Charmaine never got any sleep because she was pulling together so many tiny moving parts just to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed for this to happen. And Charmaine, we cannot thank you enough. Yeah. The other members of our team, Jean-Francois Sanson, who is a member of the board. But there are three persons who are not associated with CIMC who you would never imagine they weren't. And it's Daniel Tate, Michael Campbell, and Brandon Gunning. Yeah. Brandon designed the flyers back and forth because every member on the board had their inputs into it and the changes that he had to do. And he did it so effortlessly, so willingly, so sweetly, because if it was me, I would get very upset at different points in the process and say, me not do no more. I'm not doing any more changes. But Brandon, you are, and he's a youngster. Brandon, you have it. Yeah. And Michael Campbell and Daniel Tate for just anchoring the technology part of it behind the scenes to make sure that everything went so smoothly today. And so, like driver say, can't better. I am so grateful to all of you and to myself too, that I had the energy and the spirit to just kind of hang in there with the rest of you. Together, we have made a miracle happen today, my brothers and my sisters. And last but not least, to all the participants, the over 100 of you who registered, and not only registered, but you came on board to be fed intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually through this interaction that we have. So the best we can do is go out and make it happen. We want to see circularity increase exponentially within our personal lives, in our organizations' lives, and in the countries that we serve. And CIMC, we have work to do because over 90% of people say they want to hear more about circularity. So we're going to be putting on some webinars to educate our people, especially our children. I wish you blessings, success, prosperity, good health, happiness, and above all, I wish you inner peace, in abundance, as you convert any negative energy you have to positive energy and become a lot more wealthy.